Oh, boo! I think you guys just saw a ghost. All right, elephant in the room here. MMA Che's channel has been sold to me after Charles Oliveira had a devastating knockout loss to Ilia Topuria. He's retired from YouTube. He's done. So now I own the channel, and moving forward, there will be some core values that we will follow on this channel. The first core value is that Khabib Nurmagomedov is the greatest UFC fighter to ever live. He never lost. He never bled. And if you disagree with that or you say otherwise, I will immediately delete your comment, censor you from the internet, and send the FBI to your house to put kiddie porn on your laptop. You feel me? Now stop. And that's all we have for core values. Now let's get into the topic of the video. Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev will not be close, and here's why. Now clearly, Dricus Du Plessis is not a good fighter, is not good at the sport, his wrestling's ass, his striking is mid, and the dude looks like he's always slipping on a banana peel. The only reason that Dricus Du Plessis beat Israel Adesanya is because he's washed. Israel Adesanya is the most insane sniper that the sport has ever seen. He can find your chin and your dog's wiener from a mile away. He's quite literally a master at finding shots in absolute chaos, as we saw with his knockout against Alex Pereira. The only person who could beat Israel Adesanya when he wasn't washed was Khabib Nurmagomedov. Most people could never, ever get Izzy Adesanya down to the ground, except for Khabib, who is the greatest fighter of all time, never bled. I don't know if I reminded you guys, he's never lost, never bled. Khamzat Chimaev is an outstanding wrestler. Not as good as Khabib Nurmagomedov, but one of the best wrestlers that the sport has ever seen. He's getting up there with Daniel Cormier, who Daniel Cormier, aside from his astonishing girth, is one of the greatest wrestlers that the sport has ever seen also. The only person that could probably have beat him in wrestling are Jon Jones and Khabib. And I do think that Khamzat would be able to take down Dricus Du Plessis. I mean, think about it. Dricus has been taken down before, and if he controls him, he would win the match, because control time is the ultimate factor that decides who wins a match in the UFC. We know that for a fact. And if you don't believe that, you should just go ahead and unsubscribe from the channel. It's not controversial to say that wrestling is easily the best base for MMA, and my proof for this is that Khabib Nurmagomedov was a wrestler, and he's obviously the greatest legend that the sport has ever seen. He never lost, he never bled, he never had sex with a woman outside of his bloodline. I mean, Drink This Gay Pepsi was dominated in wrestling by Derek Brunson, and Derek Brunson is a good wrestler, though he's not as good as Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's way better at wrestling. This brings me to my next point, which is that the judging criteria is absolute ass and should be changed right away. You cannot be on your back at all in this sport, or you suck balls. Khabib was never on his back. And when it comes to the striking department, Drink This Gay Pepsi, it just rushes in mindlessly. He doesn't even have a plan. He just comes at you. And if Israel Adesanya was not washed, he could have easily sniped him and gotten his chin taken care of. But I would go out on a limb and say that in his prime, Izzy Adesanya was one of the best boxing talents the sport had ever seen. He was, I would say, better than Ilia Topuria. But, you know, he's washed now. But, you know, who's not washed is Khabib Nurmagomedov, who could step in the ring tomorrow and take over the lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight division. Jon Jones was also never washed, you know? I mean, well, compared to Khabib Nurmagomedov, he was washed, but aside from that, he really was the greatest fighter that the world has ever seen, besides Khabib. And Khamzat is also an undefeated wrestler, and I mean, when you look at his pictures, there's nobody that's stronger and girthier and lengthier and more pulpy than Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, look at this guy's back, Jesus Christ. And I know what you guys are going to say. Dricus Du Plessis does not have the capability to handle the sheer physical dominance displayed by Khamzat Chimaev, especially when it comes to wrestling. And you'd be right. There's no way he could handle that. This isn't a kiss before you go into the ring with your male coach. This is Khamzat Chimaev we're talking about. And by the way, a lot of people point out Dricus Du Plessis kissing his coach, and they say homophobic things like that's gay, nobody should do that. We're not going to allow homophobia on this channel. Let me make it abundantly clear. There is nothing wrong with Dricus Du Plessis kissing and having gay sex with his coach in the ring. There's nothing wrong with that. I won't stand for homophobia in this comment section. But Khamzat Chimaev is dominant in other ways. You know, even though he is a wrestler and that's what he's best known for, he's also displayed his dominance with hands, like the time he knocked out Gerald Mear's chart. which I don't know if you remember, but Gerald Meerschaert is a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, which just proves that Jiu-Jitsu is useless in a fight against somebody who knows how to wrestle. This was also proven by Khabib when he beat Dustin Poirier, who's a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, who has displayed some of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that the sport and the UFC have ever seen, and he was easily dominated by Khabib Nurmagomedov. And Drink This Gay Pepsi is not a wrestler in the way that Khamzat is. He's actually never wrestled in his life. But you know who has wrestled a lot is Khamzat Chimaev. He's obviously displaying how dominant wrestling is in the sport of MMA. But Khamzat Chimaev displayed his dominance because he is such a great wrestler, just like the two goats of the sport, Khabib Nurmagomedov and Jon Jones. Even though Khamzat is a very dangerous striker as well, it doesn't matter how good his striking is because he's a wrestler. And Khabib was also a wrestler. And as I mentioned earlier, Daniel D.C. Cormier also was an Olympic athlete, one of the greatest wrestlers to ever walk the face of the planet, undoubtedly. And he used that wrestling to become one of the greatest fighters in the UFC of all time. And I love Daniel Cormier, you know? His wrestling is amazing, just like Khabib's was. And also, he gives some of the best commentary in the UFC that anybody's ever heard. He displays incredible fight IQ and incredibly high verbal intelligence with everything he says. And Daniel Cormier is a renowned UFC commentator and also one of the greatest UFC fighters to ever live. He also wrestled, was a dominant wrestler. But even though he was a good wrestler, I like his commentary more. I think he knows a lot about the sport and how to commentate the UFC. The takeaway is that this fight is not going to be close. Drink This Gay Pepsi is going to make the biggest mistake and sin of all in the UFC, and he's going to give up control time. He's going to be on his back with another man in his guard, which is fine nowadays. Being on your back and controlled by another man in the judging criteria is equally as bad as eating a body shot from Ilia Topuria. Also, now that Jon Jones is retired, being the second best of all time behind Khabib Nurmagomedov, I have to say, people have been going around saying that Tom Aspinall would absolutely beat the shit out of Jon Jones. And I'm here to say that's not true. Tom Aspinall has never wrestled a day in his life. I don't care that he has a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's never, ever wrestled. And that's why the notion that he would beat Jon Jones is just absolutely absurd. In fact, my black ass is sitting here laughing at you for thinking that that's a smart thing to say. What, you guys never seen a black man in a hoodie before? Sorry, that was my best impression of Kenny Okoye. In conclusion, the main reason people lose in MMA is because they don't wrestle enough. Bo Nickel, a great wrestler, lost to RDR because he wasn't wrestling enough. The fact that Khabib never lost a single fight in his entire career is completely attributed to the fact that he never didn't wrestle enough. He always wrestled the perfect amount, and that's why he never lost. Jon Jones fought during the steroid epidemic in the UFC, and Chael Sonnen, who, by the way, is a huge disgrace to the sport, gives horrible commentary, even though he never lost. He claims to be better than Khabib. What a crazy thing to say. Chael Sonnen went on the record and said he was on more juice than Tropicana, and Jon Jones still beat him. And that's proof that if you wrestle enough, you can be undefeated and undisputed and never bleed, just like Khabib Nurmagomedov. Anyway, guys, I have to go. I'm on the first flight to Dagestan, Russia, so I can wrestle with Khabib Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev, and I can learn how to be the greatest fighter of all time. Real quick, I have to address one of the worst takes I've ever heard in the world of MMA was from this guy I met, a YouTuber. His name's Nate Roscoe RLP. Real piece of shit this guy is. He told me his GOAT is GSP because GSP has never hit and ran a pregnant woman, has never done steroids, has never ducked a fighter. He fought everybody. The only drug he was addicted to was pussy. Yeah, he told me that and just expected me to not think he was a complete and utter dumbass. In fact, go to Nate Roscoe RLP's channel and tell him that he should die. I'm going to tongue kiss Drink This Gay Pepsi tonight. Goodbye.